What's crap? I just was having these thoughts real quick about I read in this book, samurai book. It was talking about you get to this point where, or anyone can get to this point. They just got to understand it in the first place. But basically, you watch regular people, and when it starts to rain outside, they run, and they run from under, east trough to east trough, trying to avoid the rain. But a person who's come to a certain understanding will just walk in the rain, because in the end, either each person is going to get wet. They're going to get the same soaking. So it doesn't matter if you can go ahead and try to hurry up and wait and run from east trough to east trough, or you can just, when it's time to get wet, you just get wet, and when you get to a dry place, you change your clothes. But you can go ahead and run under east trough to east trough if you want. But doesn't really matter in the end. The dude who just walked calmly, he used less energy by just accepting the fact that it was raining, he was going to get wet. So this is kind of something about like understanding the elements. I mean, people all try to mystify about when you say things like that, but I mean, it's just science. It's the periodic table in a way, but there's another aspect of it, is the interplay of these things, these just elements. Like, any person should know that if you put water on fire, it'll go out. But if it's a grease fire, it'll just make it worse. But if you dump dirt on the grease fire, it'll go out. You know what I'm saying? But that's just simple understanding of elements right there, and using them against each other, utilizing the elements against the elements, because the elements are hard to control. Once it starts to flood, it's gonna flood. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You know what I'm saying? That's the element, or that's the, like, water at its extreme. Just think of a big flood. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even though you could survive that with the boat, or if you could swim for long enough, or find some driftwood to float on, you could survive that, but it would suck. But if you were inside of a great fire, it's like the oxygen itself, even if you had a little protective coating, the oxygen would get burned out. So, just like anyone knows fire, like for campfires and stuff like that, the wind will come and it'll hit the fire, and the fire will look like it gets real low real quick. But as soon as the wind stops, the fire burns hotter than when the wind was blowing it down. So that's another understanding. Or if you understand, like, look, a piece of metal, if you keep it, away from the elements, it'll sustain. But if you leave it in the dirt, just the dirt itself eats the metal and like distributes it back out again. That's why you find a lot of these elements hidden in the earth, is because they've already been just over time, they disintegrated back into a different element, and now it's working its way back through a long cycle. You'll realize, that water, when it's really cold, it freezes, and when it's really hot, it evaporates. Simple as that. You'll understand, some things burn better than others. Or you'll understand, you can understand the weather. Like earlier, it was like this leaf came flying at me out of nowhere, out of the sky. And then I switched into the moving target zone or mode, and somehow, man, it was like I sensed that more were coming, and it was like, it's kind of like this. I had no idea if they were really coming or not, but by knowing the wind, that I knew that from other times I've seen this, the wind will gust a little bit, and then all of a sudden things will stir. And they'll float around for a second, then it'll settle again. So it was like, I knew they were coming, and then they did start coming. And it was like weird. Then I realized, I was like, man, I kind of knew that was going to happen. And I didn't know that I knew at first, and that I just did it automatically. So after a while, you understand, how water's wet, fire's hot. The wind is cold in the cold, but on a hot day, the wind feels great, especially when you're sweating. You'll understand that light. If it's behind you, it's good, but if it's in your face, it blinds you. There's or the dark. Yeah, if you go from straight light and then someone turns off the lights, you're going to be blind, just like if you went from complete darkness into staring into a light. Both these, these interplays of extremes, like they, either way you go, it works. The middle result is the same. You'll know things like when something's cold, it gets harder, it gets brittle. But when something's warm, it'll bend better. Or just over time, just by living, you know what I'm saying? Like having wet hands, like doing something when it's wet out, your hands get wet. If you smoke cigarettes, you'll notice while you're holding your cigarette that the smoke will stick to the wet surface on your hand. When it's not wet, it just flies away. You'll notice things like that, like the smoke lingers on a wet surface just for a second for some reason. Don't know why really, but something I just noticed by observation, by accident. It's like you can know the ground, like as it gets cold, the ground's harder. If the ground gets overly saturated, it becomes like weak and almost it almost feels like it's trying to suck you in. You understand things like this. Yeah, it's pretty simple. That's just a simple way to look at it. This is from old school, ancient, because the same things that applied way back in the beginning of time still apply now, right now. Like these deep elements of basically reality and the earth and what's going on around us, the mechanisms, these things that we gotta, like, we can't control. We have no control over these elements. They're just there. They're just already. There's a process in motion. It's like you can just understand the process. You can see back and forward by just the incremental. The processes always work at a certain speed. It's just mathematics again. But there's a weird element to this that is unpredictable because it hasn't happened yet. So there's always this, weird. There's always these weird wild cards. Like I don't know, man. It's that the coin landing on its edge aspect of things. Like, just there are exceptions for every rule, and just rarities and oddities just happen sometimes that you couldn't. There's no way to see it coming, but the fact that that they happen, over these certain periods of time, you can know one's coming again at some point. Just a strange oddity, something that doesn't fit the paradigm at all, because these things happen all the time. After there's cycles, so many years, things increase. So you find out more as you as your overall understanding increases, and things that were previously hidden become obviously aware. You become aware of it because it's obvious now that you missed it the first time around. So just by me being outside, training in the day, at night, in different weather, different environments, just doing like making fires, like campfires. I've done it all over with different materials. It's just after a while you start to you see patterns like not now, so that makes sense. And unless you're first, you gotta be, your mind's gotta be like programmed to recognize things when you see a pattern. It's like something clicks real quick, and you train yourself to start recognizing it. And then the next part is put yourself in situations where you're gonna recognize the patterns. So that's why it's good, man, just to try to trick yourself so you can't even predict yourself, because that helps you be in the mindset to already recognize the stuff that ain't easily recognizable. You know what I'm saying? You'll recognize it. You'll see the sign, indicators real quick, because you're already there anyway, and you realize these things in advance. Everyone can come to these understandings where it's like you could just predict things just by making a prediction in the first place, and then what I'm saying. Then you can start to recognize patterns like, yeah, I'm starting to get right here, or don't play too much, don't read too much into the wrong things is the thing. But if something that is good, you should be paying attention. It's good, recognize it, and then act on it. Use all your previous experiences in this, the trial and error process of almost predicting the future, right? Just seeing things before they happen somehow, using all your senses, and even if there is such a thing as an extra sense, tapping into that realm.